All right, so we're catching you all on a good day, hopefully, to talk about a career that's, well, taking off right now.
Taking off like crazy.
Yeah, and we've got a ton of information to unpack here.
A treasure trove, really.
It is. RoleCatcher provided us with a bunch of their resources about onshore wind farm technicians, and I gotta say, I was pretty blown away.
It's a career that's really picked up steam, if you'll pardon the pun.
I see what you did there. But seriously, the growth in this field is mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher, they've got their finger on the pulse. I mean, did you see that statistic about the growth rate over the next decade?
61%, right?
61%. That's
Yeah.
just phenomenal. It's not every day you see that kind of projection.
No kidding. So for our listeners out there, we're talking about a career with some serious staying power.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a fad. This is the future. And for anyone who's ever considered working in renewable energy, this is it.
Okay, so we've established that this field is booming, but what does an onshore wind farm technician actually do?
Yeah.
Because I think there's sometimes a misconception that it's all about, climbing up windmills with a wrench.
Right, right. And while there's definitely some of that, it's so much more than that.
So walk us through it. What's a typical day like?
Well, there's really no such thing as typical in this line of work. Every day is different, which I have to say is one of the things I love about it,
Keeps things interesting.
for sure. But let's say you start your day by checking the SCADA system.
Okay, hold on. Back up a second. SCADA system.
Right, sorry. The SCADA system is basically the software that monitors the turbine's performance. You're looking at things like energy output, wind speed, any error messages, that sort of thing.
So it's like the nerve center of the whole operation.
Exactly. And you're looking for any red flags, any signs that something might be off.
So you're kind of like a tech detective in a way.
Huh. That's a good way to put it. You've got your diagnostic tools, your sensors, and you're using them to figure out what's going on.
So if the SCADA system is giving you a heads up that something's wrong, what happens next?
Well, that's where the real work begins. You might have to troubleshoot a faulty gearbox, inspect the blades for any damage, or maybe even recalibrate the pitch system.
Pitch system. Now you're just using big words to make me feel dumb.
No, it's simpler than it sounds. The pitch system basically controls the angle of the blades. It makes sure they're catching the wind in the most efficient way possible.
Ah, okay. So you're not just fixing things, you're optimizing them too.
Exactly. And this is where that technician really comes into play.
Because people often picture this job as all about manual labor, right? But you're telling me it requires a deep understanding of technology too.
100%. You need to understand mechanical systems,
Uh-huh.
electrical systems, even software.
Wow, I had no idea it was that tech heavy.
Oh, yeah. And RoleCatcher's analysis found that troubleshooting tasks, they make up a huge chunk of a technician's core duties, like around 57%.
No kidding.
And get this knowledge of computers and electronics, that's ranked at almost 70% importance.
So you're basically the brains and the brawn of the operation.
That's a great way to put it. And another thing that often surprises people is the amount of collaboration involved.
You're not just up there by yourself all day.
Definitely not. You're part of a team. You're coordinating with engineers, electricians, other technicians.
It's a team effort.
Absolutely. Especially during the construction of a new wind farm. That's a whole other ballgame.
Oh yeah, tell us about that. So you're saying when they're first building these massive wind farms, these technicians are right there in the thick of it.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you're working side by side with the engineers, making sure that each turbine, each piece is put together perfectly, exactly how it's supposed to be.
To talk about pressure, I mean, these things are huge.
They're gigantic. You're reading these complex blueprints, operating heavy machinery. It's a whole different skill set.
So you've got the construction side, the maintenance, the high-tech troubleshooting. Sounds pretty exciting, but I'm sure it's not always easy breezy up there, right? What are some of the challenges someone considering this career should be prepared for?
Right. It's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows. You're often working at, well, some pretty significant heights.
Yeah, no kidding. We're talking hundreds of feet in the air, right?
Sometimes, yeah. And in all kinds of weather conditions. Rain, shine, wind, obviously.
Because when it's windy down here, it's got to be wild up there.
You have no idea. It can be pretty intense. And physically demanding, too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. All that climbing, lifting heavy equipment.
And sometimes you're working in really cramped spaces inside the turbine itself.
Sounds like you need a good head for heights and a strong stomach.
That helps, but it's not like they just send you up there with no training or anything.
Right, safety first.
Exactly. RoleCatcher, they really emphasize the strict safety regulations in this industry. It's taken very seriously.
Well, that's good to know. Speaking of safety, I noticed RoleCatcher mentioned something called GWO certifications. What are those all about?
Oh, yeah, those are super important in this field. GWO stands for the Global Wind Organization, and they basically set the standard for safety training.
So it's like getting your license to climb a wind turbine.
Ha! In a way, yeah. These certifications show that you know how to work safely at heights, how to rescue yourself or someone else if there's an emergency, how to provide first aid. It's all about making sure everyone goes home safe.
Makes sense. Because even a little mistake up there could have big consequences.
Absolutely. And another thing to consider is the location of the work.
Okay, because I was just thinking, you're probably not working in the middle of Times Square.
Not usually, no. Onshore wind farms, they're often located in pretty remote areas, far from big cities.
So you might be trading your morning commute for a view of, well, more wind turbines.
Pretty much. But for a lot of people, that's actually a plus. They enjoy being outdoors, working with their hands, the peace and quiet.
Yeah, I can see that. So we've talked about the day-to-day, the challenges, the locations. What about the good stuff, the perks of this job?
Oh, there are plenty of those too. I mean, besides the obvious, being part of the solution to climate change.
Which is nothing to sneeze at.
Exactly. But on top of that, the job security in this field is incredible. Remember that 61% growth rate we talked about?
Hard to forget a number like that.
Right. That translates to a ton of jobs opening up in the coming years.
Talk about a hot job market.
It's only getting hotter. And the salary potential is excellent too. RoleCatcher lists some pretty impressive salary ranges.
So it's not just about passion. The paychecks are something to get excited about, too.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about the starting line either. There are some really exciting opportunities for advancement in this field. RoleCatcher actually has a whole section on career stages that I found really fascinating.
Ooh, okay, let's talk about that. Because nobody wants to be tightening bolts for the rest of their lives. So spill the beans. What kind of career path are we talking about here?
Well, you'd usually start as like an assistant technician,
Okay.
learning the ropes from the folks who've been at it a while, getting your hands dirty, figuring out how everything works, all that good stuff.
Like an apprenticeship,
Yeah.
but for, like, clean energy.
That's a great way to put it. And as you get better, gain more experience, you can move up, become a team leader maybe, supervising the maintenance of a bunch of turbines, or even specialize in something, like hydraulics or electrical systems, that sort of thing.
So you can really, like, niche down and become the go-to person for a certain aspect of it. That's pretty cool.
It is. And RoleCatcher, they have these example stories about actual people and how their careers have progressed. Did you see those?
I did, yeah. Was there one that, like, stuck out to you?
There was this one woman, she started right out of high school as an assistant tech, worked her way up, got certified in, advanced bleed repair. And now she's leading a team. They're responsible for, inspecting and maintaining offshore wind turbines.
Talk about upward mobility. That's amazing.
Right. It shows you there's room to grow in this field no matter where you're starting from.
Exactly. And it's not just about, like, on-the-job experience either, right? Didn't RoleCatcher mention something about education playing a big role?
They did. Continuing education, getting those specialized certifications, it's super important.
Makes sense. Got to stay sharp.
Exactly. You could become certified in hydraulic systems, electrical troubleshooting, even high voltage safety.
Okay, so it's a career where you're constantly learning new things. I like that.
Definitely keeps things interesting. And down the line, you could even move into things like project management, research and development, maybe even training and education.
Really? Wow, there's a whole lot more to this than I initially thought.
Right. It's pretty diverse, actually.
So, okay, let's say someone is listening to us right now and they're like, all right, I'm sold. I want in. What are the next steps? Where do they go from here?
Well, RoleCatcher, they've got you covered.
Because they give us access to their job board, and that thing is stacked.
Oh, yeah, they go all out. But it's way more than just job listings. Think of it as your secret weapon for figuring out this whole career thing.
Intriguing.
Right. So they have these amazing AI-powered tools that can actually analyze your resume.
No way.
Oh, yeah. It'll tell you how well it matches up with different job descriptions.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. So you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. You can actually target the jobs that you're best suited for.
Smart.
And they have this huge database of practice interview questions.
Like a ridiculous amount. When I saw that number, I thought they'd added an extra 0 by mistake.
It's a lot, I won't lie, over 120,000.
I know. It's kind of overwhelming.
But here's the thing. It's not about memorizing all the answers. It's about getting comfortable, talking about your skills, your experience, being able to really sell yourself.
Right, right. Because nobody wants to hire a robot. They want a real person.
Exactly. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI comes in handy again. It'll actually give you feedback on your practice sessions so you can, identify any areas where you need to improve.
That's amazing. So it's like having your own personal interview coach?
Basically. Okay, but can I just say one more thing about this whole onshore wind farm technician thing?
Of course. Go for it.
This isn't just a job, it's about being a part of something much bigger. You're helping to create a more sustainable future, a cleaner planet for everyone.
That's got to feel good.
Oh, it does. It really does. And I think that's a huge part of what draws people to this field, that sense of purpose, of making a real difference.
Absolutely. And I imagine that's pretty motivating, especially these days.
Totally.
Well, this has been eye-opening, to say the least. We've covered a lot of ground here, from the nitty-gritty of the job to the bigger picture of, saving the planet and whatnot.
Sounds about right.
So for our listeners out there, if you're feeling even the slightest bit intrigued by this whole wind farm technician thing, what do we always say? Do your homework.
Couldn't agree more.
RoleCatcher. It's definitely a good place to start. Explore their website, see what it's all about. You might just be surprised at what you discover.
Who knows? You might just find your calling.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time, keep those turbines turning.